Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for coming. And my very special thanks to our team for all the work they've done over the years. I'm Mike Hatfield, the chairperson of the CCSJ, or the Community Coalition for Social Justice. It was a group formed in 1999 to respond proactively to threats in our communities, specifically in relation to Ku Klux Klan activity in nearby cities. Over these 25 years, we have organized a variety of things: forums, celebrations, gatherings, book purchases, production of a graphic novel, and continually supported social justice in our area. Our principal event has been the celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is an activity we started in 2007 at the Metropolitan Theatre. Today, we meet again with the theme Lift Every Voice and Vote. And that's, for me, a big thank you to all our speakers and musicians in today's event, and my praise to all the folk in our group that have assisted and kept us going all these years. We continue to meet monthly, have a monthly update, and a website. So it's time now to move on to our first speaker. Everything on this occasion is on the video that I shall start, stop, introduce, and restart for each contribution. We shall have questions and comments at the end. So here we go. Our first speaker is Barb Howe.
Greetings. This is a rather brief overview of what I call the road to the vote, starting in 1776 and going up to 1990, showing the progress we've made and in some cases the setbacks for people accessing the right to vote. 1776, white men with property can vote. States will determine who can vote, so free African American men can vote in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and until 1783 in Maryland. And in this reenactment of voting, which I think was in colonial Williamsburg. 1776 to 1807, New Jersey granted women the vote in its state constitution. There were many ways you could get the right to vote: a state constitution, a territorial constitution, a referendum, a vote by the people from the legislature. We'll go through some of those processes as we go along. 1789, ratification of the Constitution. White men with property can vote. Poor people, women, Native Americans, enslaved African Americans cannot, even though the Constitution says we the people do ordain and establish the Constitution, but we the people isn't for everybody. 1790, we have a Naturalization Act which sets forth the first uniform rules for granting citizenship by naturalization. You have to be a citizen to vote. So it limits naturalization to free white persons. Keep in mind that word white, of good character. Courts associated whiteness with Christianity and Judaism and therefore excluded Muslim immigrants sometimes because they called them Asian. And that doesn't change until 1944. 1826, Maryland becomes the last state to remove religious restrictions when it passes legislation enfranchising Jews and removing religious qualifications for civil office. So white men can no longer be denied the right to vote on the basis of their religion. And now we get into a series of votes that will take place over the country of women being allowed the vote in some situations. So in 1838 in Kentucky, widows who had property subject to school taxation and unmarried women who were called femmes seules, that's the legal term, have the right to vote for school board elections. So we'll see eventually women might get the vote in a primary election or only for local officials. 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ends the Mexican-American War, guarantees citizenship to Mexicans living in all these territories that will become states. But there are still property laws, language, literacy requirements that keep people from voting, and night riders that are like the Ku Klux Klan sort of use intimidation and violence. 1848, 300 people will attend the convention to discuss women's rights at the Wesleyan Chapel, shown here in Seneca Falls. 100 people will sign the Declaration of Sentiments, which Elizabeth Cady Stanton, shown here, wrote, modeled on the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, she said, as did the Declaration of Independence, that all men, and women, are created equal, endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights. And this is the first formal demand made in the country for women's right to vote. They say it's the duty of the women of this country to secure to themselves their sacred right to the elective franchise. 1856, North Carolina becomes the last state to eliminate property requirements, so now all white men in America can vote. 1857, one of the worst decisions by our Supreme Court, where Dred and his wife Harriet Scott versus Sanford, and the court rules that a black man has no rights a white man is bound to respect, basically saying that black men are not, and of course, black women are not citizens. We don't have to pay attention. 1866, so now we're after the war. The Civil Rights Act grants citizenship, but not the right to vote to all native-born Americans. 1867, Kansas puts a women's suffrage amendment on the ballot. The first time it goes to a direct vote, of course, of men. It loses. I always had to remind students that men had to give women the right to vote. Kansas is the first of 56 referenda campaigns, 80 campaigns to get legislatures to submit amendments to voters, 47 campaigns for state constitutional conventions to get it into state constitutions, 277 campaigns to get state party conventions to include suffrage planks in party platforms. 1868, the 14th Amendment includes the word male for the first time. All persons born or naturalized, are citizens of the United States and of the state. But when the right to vote is denied to any of the male inhabitants being 21 years of age and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged except for participation in rebellion, and remember, we're only 3 years after the end of the Civil War, the basis of representation shall be reduced in the proportion which the number of male citizens will bear to the number of male citizens. Now, technically, this includes African American males, but in reality, of course, there are many barriers to them being citizens. And this issue of birthright citizenship is one of the issues before the Supreme Court now, as many of you know. 1868, Vineland, New Jersey, 168 white and 4 African American cast ballots in this blueberry crate ballot box that they put in the corner of the election site, put their ballots in there, and you can go to the local museum and see the ballot box. 1868, the federal women's suffrage amendment is first introduced in Congress by this Republican senator from Kansas. It's 1868. 1869, the suffrage amendment is introduced as a joint resolution to both houses of Congress by this Republican senator from Indiana, Republican representative from Indiana. 1869, the National Women's Suffrage Association is founded by Susan B. Anthony on the left and Elizabeth Cady Stanton to get a vote through a congressional amendment. Now, they have a very wide range of issues, but suffrage is certainly among them. So about 6 months later, the American Women's Suffrage Association is formed by Lucy Stone, her husband Henry Blackwell, whom she refused to say she would obey in their marriage vows, Julia Ward Howe of Battle Hymn of the Republic fame, and other more conservative activists decide they're going to work only for suffrage and they're going to work by amending individual state constitutions. The 15th Amendment will be ratified in 1870. This establishes the right of African American males to vote, but in the South especially, we'll see for a long time to come, almost a century, poll taxes, reading requirements, physical violence, property destruction, hiding the polls, economic pressures will keep African Americans from voting. 1870, the Utah Territorial Legislature grants women the right to vote but not hold public office. So here's Sarah Young, 2 days later, takes advantage of that in a municipal election, is the first woman to vote in the U.S. under equal suffrage laws. 1871, Victoria Woodhull, one of the more interesting women in our history, addresses the U.S. House Judiciary Committee, arguing women's right to vote under the 14th Amendment because all persons are citizens. She doesn't, of course, win the argument. Now in 1871, we have the Anti-Suffrage Society, founded by wives of prominent men, including Civil War generals. If you look on the right, the first name you'll see in the box is Mrs. General W.T. Sherman, William T. Sherman. Students were always confused by why women were identified by their husbands' names. They will publish this petition to Congress against the vote in Godey's Ladies Book and Magazine. That's one of the most popular magazines at the time. 1872, Susan B. Anthony is arrested in New York for trying to vote. She's arrested. She will be tried for voting illegally, convicted, and fined $100 that she'll never pay. And on the right, you'll see her tombstone in Rochester, New York. Starting in 2016 with the Hillary Clinton campaign, people will cover her tombstone with stickers. They had to cover it over with a plexiglass shield of sorts because all the adhesive was damaging the stone. 1875, white Mississippi Democrats devised the Mississippi Plan to suppress the African American vote. Too many African American men, they said, were voting, and they were Republicans, and the Mississippi Democrats didn't like that. 1876, U.S. versus Reese, the Supreme Court upholds the idea of poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses. You can vote if your grandfather could vote. Well, of course, almost no African American men in 1876, especially in the South, had a grandfather who could vote. And this is a sample of a literacy test used in Louisiana in 1964. 1878, Senator Sargent, a Republican from California, introduces the suffrage amendment using the same dangerous 39 words that will be passed in 1919. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Dangerous language, supposedly. 1882, Houses of Congress appointed select committees on suffrage, reported out favorably. May 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act bars people of Chinese ancestry from becoming citizens, so they cannot vote. The first time we've prohibited immigration based on ethnicity and national origin, and of course, we have done that again. 1887, the first vote on suffrage in the Senate is defeated. 26 members are absent, including both John Kenna and Johnson Newland Camden, are Democrat senators from West Virginia at the time. And at that same time, George Vest of Missouri argued that women belonged at home and not at the ballot box. If this government, which is based on the intelligence of the people, shall ever be destroyed, it will be by injudicious, immature, or corrupt suffrage. If the ship of state launched by our fathers shall ever be destroyed, it will be by striking the rock of universal, unprepared suffrage. Women are emotional. We don't want emotional suffrage. What we need is more logic into public affairs and less feeling. You will still hear people say people who are not educated or well prepared should not be voting, but there's no such requirement in our law. 1887, the General Allotment Act, or the Dawes Act, gives citizenship to Native Americans who will give up their tribal affiliations, and many things happen with that act, but if you decided you would give up your tribal affiliation, you could be a citizen. 1890, the Federation of Labor supports suffrage. That year, The American Women's Suffrage Association and the national one merged to become the National American Women's Suffrage Association, working on state-by-state campaigns for suffrage. And then Mississippi has a new constitution that disenfranchises nearly all African American voters with poll taxes, literacy tests, grandfather clauses, and voter registration for jury members, because juries get their potential members from voter registration laws. 1890 Indian Territory Naturalization Act grants citizenship to Native Americans. So they have to apply similar to immigrants. And this applies to the Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma. The trick is that you could have dual citizenship, but most did not take it. 1890, Wyoming is admitted to the Union. It's the first state to grant women the full enfranchisement in the Constitution. Now, they had the right to vote in 1869 in the Wyoming Territory, but women in Utah voted first. And here's Esther Morris leading those efforts. 1898, the Supreme Court in Williams v. Mississippi upholds voter registration provisions, so it says it's not discriminatory to have grandfather clauses, literacy tests, etc., and says, Senator Tillman, we do our best to keep every Negro in our state from voting. 1901, we're back to Oklahoma. Now Indians there can become citizens, and here it's being announced in the Daily Chieftain, which was an influential newspaper of the Cherokee Nation. Cannot overestimate the importance of this action. Its political effect is of importance. It gives the franchise to the Indians, but makes it possible for members of the tribes to make their own contracts. It's only applied to Oklahoma. 1838, Kentucky legislation will be repealed because, well, a lot of African American women in Lexington decided to register to vote. They didn't all vote, but the idea that they were registered threatened the white male legislators, so let's overrule the law. 1903, the National American Women's Suffrage Association meets in New Orleans, featuring Southern women and deciding to accept the states' rights structure so that Southern state organizations can exclude African American women from their associations. There's a lot about the white women's suffrage movement that's pretty racist, and this is one example of it. The idea being that, well, if African American men could vote, certainly white women like us ought to be allowed to vote. 1911, anti-suffrage state associations form the National Association opposed to women's suffrage. It's not active for very long, but it says because 90% of the women do not want it or do not care, and men will vote our interests. 1913, the National Women's Party, formed by Alice Paul and Lucy Burns, as an auxiliary of NASA to focus on the federal amendment. NASA is going state by state, now federal. 1913, Southern States Women's Suffrage Conference formed to promote white women's suffrage to maintain white supremacy, very clearly made to make the Southern states white. 1915, West Virginia legislature passes an act proposing an amendment to the Constitution giving women the right to vote. Governor Hatfield approves it. The legislature will have it on the ballot in 1916 when it is overwhelmingly defeated, 72% to 28%. Harriet Jones of Wheeling is one of the leaders of this effort. 1918, Wilson, a Democrat, first states public support of federal suffrage. The House will vote in favor of the suffrage amendment. He will finally address the Senate, arguing for suffrage at war's end. The idea being that women have contributed enough to the war effort that they are allowed to have the vote. 1919, House of Representatives passes the federal amendment, but the opponents in the Senate block it until legislatures can adjourn for the year, so they can't do anything with it easily in a lot of states. Senate will pass it in June. West Virginia's members of Congress, I'm pleased to say, all vote in favor of it. We had 6 representatives in the House of Representatives at the time and 2 senators. Everyone's a Republican except for Matthew Neely. Now goes to the state. We need 36 states, and very quickly, within a week of that Senate vote, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin will ratify. February 1920, we're very close. 33 states have ratified. The League of Women Voters is founded in Chicago. We still need 3 more states. February 27th, the West Virginia legislature convenes. Taxation's on the agenda, but so is suffrage. This is a whole story we don't have time to get into, but it's a great story. The House of Delegates will ratify on the March 3rd, March 10th. We become the 34th state. Morgantown's Lenelo Yost will help lead that fight. August 18th, 1920, Tennessee becomes the 36th state. Washington state is the 35th. Harry Byrne says he always favored suffrage, but we do know that his mother wrote to him and said, "Dear son, you'd better vote for suffrage." August 26th, now we call it Women's Equality Day, and Bainbridge Colby signs it into law. Carrie Chapman Catt, who had talked before about all those campaigns that we needed, says now, in addition to all those campaigns, we had 19 campaigns with 19 successive Congresses. Only one woman who was at Seneca Falls was still alive to vote. I think she was a teenager watching the proceedings. 1921, the Order of Sons of America is organized to fight for equality and rights of Mexican Americans as citizens. 1922, Ozawa, the Supreme Court upholds the 1790 Act, barring Asian Americans from citizenship because they're not white. And the district attorneys say this man who's lived in Hawaii and California for 20 years is well qualified, but he was born in Japan and therefore he's not eligible. It says that this basically says that Congress controls naturalization. It was considered to be confined to white persons with addition of those of African nativity and descent. But if Congress had wanted to change it, they could have changed it. We've seen this before with the Supreme Court, or still see it. If Congress wanted to do something, they could have. Anyway, Ozawa is Japanese. He's not white, therefore he's not a citizen. Then, just shortly thereafter, Thin applies for citizenship. He's from India, and he says that he's high caste Hindu and he's white, therefore, and he's Aryan. Now, this is before we deal with all the issues with Hitler and Aryan citizenship or Aryan qualifications or descriptions. So Indians who had been naturalized lost their citizenship. This guy was a soldier. He had a PhD in theology. New York will eventually make him eligible for naturalization. 1924, the service of Native Americans during World War I brings the Citizenship Act that grants some Native American citizenship, but the same tactics used to stop African Americans are used against Native Americans in many Western states. 1943, the Chinese Exclusion Act is repealed finally after 60 some years, because China is our ally during World War II. Then we allow Filipinos and Asian Indians to become citizens. And then in 1952, the McCarran-Walter Act repeals the racial restrictions, focuses now on denying immigrants who are unlawful, immoral, diseased, politically radical, communists, etc. Remember, 1952 is the Cold War and the McCarthy era. 1964, the 24th Amendment finally abolishes that poll tax, and Johnson says there can be no one too poor to vote. Voting Rights Act in 1965 bans literacy tests and provides federal enforcement of African American registration and voting rights. Parts of this are under attack now. as some of you may know. And you can see in the chart that non-white voting percentage went up to something like 58% total in the country in those southern states. And in 2013, the areas you can see here were still covered by some aspects of the Voting Rights Act. 1971, the 26th Amendment gives voting rights to 18-year-olds. We can credit Jennings Randolph, a Democrat from Salem, West Virginia, who's called the father of the 26th Amendment. He worked on this 11 times, beginning in 1942, with the same idea that 18-year-olds were fighting in World War II. They should have the right to vote, but Vietnam finally pushes it over. 1975, the Voting Rights Act is amended to include language assistant, and language requirements had been used routinely to keep the vote from people who spoke other languages. And this will especially affect people in the Southwest who speak Spanish. And finally, 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act requires access to the polls and to the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Right. What follows now is a song by Al Anderson, who's been a dedicated member of our group for many, many years, and also a great singer for many, many, many years.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vision where the grapes of wrath are stored. He is loosed his faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. And the beauty of the lily, Christ was born across the sea with the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. As God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Just like Dr. Martin Luther King marched many, many, many years ago. He said, we got to march for freedom. Right now is the best time in our lifetime. We're going to be marching for freedom. As Dr. Martin Luther said, march for freedom. And the beauty of the lily, Christ was born across the sea, and the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. As God is marching on.
Thanks, Al. Our next speaker, Tony Crocamo, is a member of the Executive Committee of Fair Districts, Pennsylvania, a financial project of the League of Women Voters of PA, consisting of a coalition of non-partisan citizens and organizations seeking to reform Pennsylvania's redistricting process to make it impartial, transparent, and accountable. Tony has been a volunteer there since 2016. He presents educational programs on gerrymandering and redistricting reform in Pennsylvania and instructs volunteers on how to lobby legislatures. He lives in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. He notes that few constituents asked to meet with members of the State House of Delegates or with state senators, let alone congressional representatives or senators. Tony believes many constituents are reluctant to meet with legislatures because they believe the officials know more about the topic than the constituent does. But he says, unless the issue is a pet project for the legislator or is assigned to his or her government committee, he will be better informed on the topic than the legislature. They don't have the time to become well informed on every issue. And since the issue is important to you, you will have done your homework. So today's topic is lobby legislators on any issue, a non-confrontational team approach to citizen advocacy. Tony had two documents to distribute, and they are actually on our website. The link is at the end for that. So here we get Tony.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I am pleased to be talking to you about how to lobby legislators on any issue, and it is a non-confrontational team approach to citizen advocacy. Now, citizenship is a context sport. We don't have a representative democracy without telling our elected officials how we want to be represented. So even if we disagree with our elected officials, they need to know our opinions, our values, and our votes make up their constituency. In the brief time we have allotted today, you're going to get a quick overview, a taste of a non-confrontational team approach to lobbying legislators. You can use this approach to lobby legislators at any level of government, from municipal all the way up to federal. This is the same process used by the Friends Committee on National Legislation, the Quaker organization that lobbies federal legislators on issues of peace and justice. This approach to lobbying is meant to build a relationship between the advocates and the legislators. So let's start with the makeup of an advocacy team. There are 5 basic team roles or tasks on an advocacy team. You have one captain who runs the meeting for the team and serves as the MC of the meeting. You have one scheduler who is the sole point of contact with the legislator for the purpose of scheduling that meeting. One person is the note taker, who takes notes during the meeting, obviously, and you have 1 to 3 members who tell a what brought me here story, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. All members of the team are researchers, and up to 3 tell a story. So more than 5 team members can work, but having more than 5 people with speaking roles at a 15 to 30-minute lobby meeting is difficult. These roles can rotate among team members from meeting to meeting. During a lobby visit, you want to highlight which team members are constituents and which are of the same party as the legislator. That is always helpful. So the first step is to gather 3 to 5 or more people interested in advocating an elected official on a specific topic. You get together at a coffee shop or at someone's house to organize the advocacy team using the lobby visit roadmap, a handout that you received prior to this presentation. Once you get the group together and organize the lobby visit team, you basically will be agreeing upon the team roles for the visit. You will be deciding who's going to be the scheduler. The scheduler, after the meeting, requests a meeting date, and the scheduler, it's very important that the scheduler also request is it going to be an in-person meeting or is it going to be online, the start time, and the duration. So you need the date, the start time, the duration, and whether it's in person or on Zoom or something like that. All the participants do research to find common ground with the legislator. Research sources include the legislator's website, the bio, articles, statements, press releases, their legislative history, what are the types of things they're really interested in, and you're looking for areas of potential common ground with the legislator. Do you attend the same church or have the same faith? Did you or your spouse or your children attend any of these schools that the legislator or the legislator's spouse or their children attended? High school, college school? Did you have the same major? Do you like the same sports teams? You're looking for things that make you similar to rather than different from the legislator. It's important, again, that the scheduler asks for the date, time, place, and duration of the visit. Once the office confirms the date, time, place, and duration of the visit, the scheduler shares that information with the rest of the team. Typically, a lobby visit is scheduled for 2 or 3 weeks after the request. Sometimes it can take longer, seldom much shorter. And so in those 2 or 3 weeks is when you prepare for the lobby visit. You rehearse. So this is where we get into the heart of the meeting, the what brought me here story. So what brings you to this work? When and how did you become aware of the issue? Why is it important to you? Saying that something is important or the right thing to do, or that the present circumstances are unfair, immoral, unconstitutional, dangerous, whatever it is, those are all good reasons to act. But those are not your what brought me here story. Your what brought me here story is an incident, a memory, a moment in your life that helped you formulate your concept of fairness, morality, the Constitution, justice, or peace. And what did you see, learn, hear, experience, or realize that created that value in you? Did it come from a parent, a teacher, a relative, a friend, a stranger, a spiritual belief, a novel, poem, historical event, current events? Drill down for the underlying event that made this value important to you. That's your what brought me here story. And the reason that has to be a values-based story is today you can argue, you certainly can argue opinions, and even today you can argue facts, but you can't argue human values. They are common to us all. For example, here's the what brought me here story I use when talking to legislators about gerrymandering. In 1969, I was a 19-year-old combat infantryman in South Vietnam, and I saw young men die for this country. While I cannot tell you what each of them thought that sacrifice was for, I can absolutely guarantee you that none of them died to make districts safe for one party or another, or to allow party leaders to draw districts to make them safe for one party or another. That is my short what brought me here story, values-based, when I talk to legislators about gerrymandering. It's important to remember that lobbying is not an on-off switch. Your legislator will fit into one of four categories on any issue. They will be an active leader against what you want to have happen. They may be against what you want to have happen, but not terribly strident about it. They might be neutral or swing. And this includes people who are misinformed, uninformed, unaware, or unsure. They might be for it, but not terribly strident about being for it. And they might be an active leader for what you want to have happen. Lobbying is not an on-off switch. You are not going to meet with an elected official who is diametrically opposed to what you want to do, and by the brilliance of your argument, convert that person to your point of view. That doesn't happen. But if you can make a strident opponent less strident, that is a win. Any movement toward your position is a win. And as for the leaders who are supporting you and you're meeting with them, thank them and ask them what else you can do to help them move the issue forward. One of the things you're going to be doing at that organizational meeting is creating the ask, which is a simple statement of what you want the legislator to do. And it's a statement that is related to the legislative process. I mean, sometimes there is a bill and you may want the legislator to be a co-sponsor. Sometimes it's going to be a vote on a bill, and you're going to want the legislator to vote for or against that bill. So it has to be related to the legislative process, and it has to be related to the legislator's position. You have to address their concerns. If you have somebody who is diametrically opposed to a certain bill, asking them to be a prime co-sponsor of the bill is unreasonable. But if you can find out what they like about it, if there's any little piece that they like about it, well, that's a positive thing, a move in the right direction. That's what lobbying is all about. Okay, in a period of time from when the scheduler has asked for the meeting and the meeting is actually scheduled, you want to use that time to plan and rehearse the meeting. Use the lobby visit roadmap and the contact ask sheet handouts to organize the meeting. You want to brainstorm questions and answers, any objections you think the legislator may have to your issue, and you want to come up with some responses for those. You want to have a dry run of the meeting, and you definitely want to practice your what brought me here stories. Finally, the meeting day arrives. Have everyone agreed to arrive early someplace near where you're going to have the meeting? Or if it's an online meeting, everyone gets on Zoom maybe 10 or 15 minutes early just to go over any last-minute questions and details. You arrive early, and at the beginning of the meeting, the captain thanks the legislator for having the meeting, or whatever you're going to be thanking the legislator for. The captain explains who you are and the relevant affiliations members of the group has with the legislator. And the captain introduces the delegation. And after the delegation is introduced, the note taker can introduce the ask, providing that to the legislator and or staff member, and also providing the contact information for the lobby group to the legislators or an aide. Then the captain facilitates the flow of the meeting. After the what brought me here, you transition to the what brought me here stories, and after the what brought me here stories, it's time for the legislator or staff member to comment. So be comfortable with silence. The meeting then becomes a conversation. The captain monitors the time, and at the end, thanks the legislator, recaps the follow-up that will be taken, and the team leaves and reconvenes at another location at a debriefing to debrief. Save post-meeting comments until you're clear of that office, or the legislator and staff members are all offline, and then you reconvene and have a debriefing. At the debriefing, you simply critique the meeting. What worked well, what didn't work well, what could use some more work, how were the what brought me here stories, and then you want to plan your follow-up. There should be a thank you card. Now, you can send an email, but I always think a handwritten note card is even nicer. You got to talk about the questions that were raised and who's going to respond to them and when. Does the group want to do a press release about the meeting? Do you want to do a letter to the editor or a social media post? And you definitely want to have a meeting summary, because this process is not meant to be once and done. What you want to do is develop a relationship with the legislator. So you want to keep records of all the meetings you've had. And so a meeting summary and a meeting file, or maybe you have the contact and ask sheet for the meeting, and you have notes on what the meeting accomplished and what was said. That will help you in future meetings with the legislator. So these are the 10 steps to success. You form the teams. You use that lobby visit roadmap to define the roles, and then you schedule the meeting. You research the legislator. You prepare your what brought me here stories. You prepare the ask, and you rehearse. Then you have the meeting, and then you get together and you develop a summary and debriefing of the meeting, and you record what you have found out. And then you prepare to rinse and repeat. You want to do this again. You want to create that relationship with the legislator. You want to become a resource for good information about your topic with the legislator.
Thank you very much, Tony. That's very good. Our next piece of music is Everyday People. This is the Osage Soul and Gospel Choir. And thanks to Al Anderson and Aristotle Jones for this. You will see some pictures taken during the singing of this song. Again, a thank you. Thank you to everyone in the choir and Al and Aristotle on that. They'll be coming back for a second song later. Right now, we have Anitra Hamilton. She is the past president of the Morgantown Kingwood branch of the NAACP. She is an advocate. She is a community advocate for healthcare, education, and racial justice. Her passion for community building is evident in everything she does, from acts of service within her sorority, the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which was incorporated to mentoring and advising organizations on the campus of WVU. One of her favorite quotes by the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" So Anitra is going to talk now.
Hello, I'm Anitra Hamilton, the past president of the Morgantown Kingwood branch of the NAACP. And I want to take this time to thank you for allowing me to spend a few moments with you today in celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to talk to you about a very important topic, and that topic is voting. About 2 years ago, the NAACP in Morgantown launched an initiative entitled Your Vote, Our Future. It was our goal to get as many people as possible to the polls. We wanted people to embrace their responsibility and their right to vote. It is not our job to tell you how to vote. We just wanted to get as many people to the polls as possible. As we can see today, in the very tense political climate, we see so many things that are occurring on our news literally every single day. These are all at the results of what happened at the polls. It is the results of those that when the collective of the votes were cast, the individuals that are put in office, these are the decisions that are made. So I want to impress upon you the power of your vote, that your vote literally has power to shape communities. It has power to guide municipalities. It has the power to guide states and even the nation at large. A lot of times you hear people say, my vote don't matter, it won't make a difference. But I'm here to tell you today that your vote literally matters. It is your vote, but it is our future. Voting is crucial because it empowers citizens to not only shape their government, but it also influences policies and it protects your rights as a citizen in a democratic society. It literally allows you to engage in the governance of our country when you're able to cast your vote and be a part of the political election system. Voting also influences many different aspects of our day-to-day living, such as education. We all desire to see a strong public education, and one of the avenues that happens and take place is who we elect to put in office. Who we elect put in office literally has the power to make decisions concerning how schools are funded, what policies take place in schools, what kind of schools are available to our kids. These are all done through the power of your vote. Your vote has the ability to affect healthcare, the policies concerning healthcare, how healthcare is administered. You know, our nation is in a crisis with the healthcare system coming from a lot of what's taking place on the federal level. But again, this is at the hands of those that were placed in office due to our vote. So always keep in mind that is your vote, but it's our future. The power of your vote is that it enables us to bring diversity to the election system. It brings diversity to those in office. That is the power of your vote, that it enables you as a citizen to put people at the table who look like you. Put people at the table who have similar interests, who can represent the ideas and the principles that you want to see take place in your city, in your state, and the nation at large. That is the power, of your vote. So don't ever think that your vote don't matter. It absolutely makes a difference in how we're able to govern our state. One of the powerful things about voting is that it fosters civic engagement. Voting is a gateway to civic engagement because when voters participate in elections, they often become more aware of political issues, of policies, and the overall functioning of our government. It is a gateway for citizens because oftentimes they'll become more involved in more boots on the ground organizations. People oftentimes ask me, how can I get involved? And I always tell them, look for boots on the ground organizations that literally is the outreach that touch people directly through their involvement and their engagement through their organizational outreach. One of the blessings of being a part of the NAACP is to see some of the phenomenal work that we've been able to do through the education system, to be able to stay in tune with what's going on in healthcare through our health committee, and also to keep our members in our community engaged politically through our political action. There are so many different ways that you can be involved, and it's open to everyone. So I encourage you to look at different organizations that are taking place all around Morgantown and Mon County, and look for ways for that you can get involved. That voting is not the only way that you can be engaged politically to see a direct impact in what you desire to see in your community and in our state at large. Please remember that voting is a responsibility and it is a privilege that each eligible citizen of this state should embrace. It is something that you should absolutely embrace. So encourage your family and your friends. Begin to make a plan now. Have a poll party. Have a day where you all go and vote together. Encourage more people that if we want to see a productive and effective change take place, we have got to get more people at the polls. It is our responsibility to know who is running for office. Take a few moments and study the candidates that are running for office. What is their platform? What are their principles? What do they believe? Engage them. That is our civic duty, to absolutely know when we go to the polls who we are voting for, so that when you cast your vote, you're casting your vote in the full confidence that this person will advocate for your interests, they will fight on the behalf of the whole, and they will be the best representative they can to build a better state and a better city for you and your family. So I just want to take these few moments to encourage you to become more involved, to engage more politically as we look at and commemorate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a light in the midst of darkness. He was one that stood on the front lines of advocacy, oftentimes in the perils of danger, to fight for us all. And we can't take that for granted. We need more people to carry that torch and be that light and to be that voice, that even in the midst of despair, we are not discouraged. We will remain yet hopeful that a change is going to come. I remember several years ago, one of our new presidents, his motto was change. Yes, we can. I still believe change can come. That no matter what state, no matter what condition that we are in, we have the power and the ability to make a difference. And we can do that through the power of our vote. That our vote is our voice. So I encourage you to make a plan for the upcoming election, and please keep at heart and share with everyone you come in contact with. It is your vote, but it is our future, and that what vote that we cast at the ballot has the power and the potential to affect us all. So again, I'm Anitra Hamilton. I am the past president of the Morgantown Kingwood branch of the NAACP, and I thank you for spending these few moments with me as we talk about the power of your vote.
Thank you, Anitra. That's a very powerful talk, and we need to be listening to you. We're now going to get a song by Chris Haddocks. Chris is a great singer from this area, and he also writes his own songs, and in this case, he wrote this particular song, which is called We Are All Children of God.
Hey folks. We worship in different locations. Worship on different days. We celebrate different occasions. light of the Maker shines on us, whomever we are. We are, we are all children of God, of God. We are all children of God. We rise up in arms on our brothers, find ways to keep them oppressed. We lift up ourselves before others, but the Spirit is hardly impressed. We keep our own sisters in bondage, afraid should they learn how to read. Such actions and such ways of thinking, the God of love's hard cause to breathe. And we are all children of God, of God. We are all children of God. We speak out against corporations in business to maim and to kill, who profit from wars between nations, and yet we invest in them still. We glorify war in our movies. Their games teach our children to fight, and our drones do the dirty work for us, so we can sleep all through the night. And we are all children of God, of God. We are all children of God. If ever we hope to move close to a world that is peaceful and just, we must with each other stay close to, and in our great differences trust. It won't somehow passively happen. We'll wake to a world fully healed. The story is still being written, and the ending is ours to reveal. We are all children of God, of God. We are all children of God. We are all children of God. Peace, folks.
Thanks, Chris. And we are now going to have Jessica Nelson, and she's going to talk about the representing the League of Women Voters.
Thank you for inviting the League of Women Voters Morgantown Monongalia to participate in today's presentation. I must begin by stating for the record that I am speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters and no other entity. The League pillar of protecting voting rights for all is the founding basis of this organization, and voter education is among our top priorities. In 2025, the West Virginia legislature passed House Bill 3016. This new law required approved forms of photo identification in order to vote beginning July 11, 2025. This includes absentee voting, early voting, and election day voting. The League of Women Voters has several concerns that this new law creates barriers to our right to vote, especially for our eldest and youngest voters. But right now, it is the law. So we have made it a priority for 2026 to educate voters about this new law and how it may affect them, especially our elderly residents, absentee voters, and college students. There are 5 nursing homes and 2 assisted living facilities in Morgantown. That is more than 600 residents of our county. The assumption that a person lacks capacity because they reside in one of these facilities is absolutely false. Less than half of residents in assisted living and long-term care are certified by a medical professional as lacking capacity. People may have short-term stays for rehabilitation therapy after a surgery or joint replacement, or a medical event that requires time to heal and gain strength before they are ready to return home. These are a significant number of residents you find in facilities. Many residents have outlived their family, have no family residing close by to assist them, or just need services to live their best lives in spite of whatever limitations may keep them from living alone. Using a wheelchair or a walker, vision deficits, or no longer being able to drive, cook, and clean for themselves are all reasons one might move to a care facility. These facilities all operate under federal and state licensing agencies that strictly enforce the Center for Medicare and Medicaid regulations. Within those regs is the Residents' Bill of Rights that reads very much like the U.S. Constitution's Bill of Rights. These rights guarantee that residents not only have a right to vote, but also require that facilities protect their rights as citizens to vote, must help residents obtain and complete mail-in ballots, and must fully provide assistance where needed to complete their ballots. Failure to do so is in violation of CMS rules and regulations. So why did we go through all of this background information if it only affects around 600 voters in Mon County? Because statewide, the 2025 law creates barriers of voter identification for about 8,700 long-term care and 3,600 assisted living residents. That is potentially 12,300 people in West Virginia who are eligible for absentee ballots and must now jump through additional hoops just to exercise their constitutional right to vote. This is why we are here today, to encourage everyone to know what is necessary to cast your ballots this year, but also to encourage you to help others in your circle who may not have photo ID, whether that be an elderly relative, a student voting from college, or a neighbor who doesn't drive, and to help them know what they will need in order to vote. The new law lists acceptable forms of photo identification as a valid, unexpired driver's license or state-issued non-operator's identification, a driver's license from another state, a U.S. passport or passport card, an employee identification issued by a local, state, or federal government entity, a student ID issued from a West Virginia institution of higher education or a West Virginia high school, U.S. military ID that includes a photo, a voter registration card with a photo issued by a West Virginia county clerk or the West Virginia Secretary of State, an identification card issued by the DMV without a photo for voters that swear and affirm they belong to a recognized religious community that prohibits them from being photographed, and for voters age 65 or older, an expired photo ID that meets these requirements only if the document was not expired on their 65th birthday. We here at the League of Women Voters are especially concerned for elderly, homebound, and long-term care residents who have always had the right to apply for an absentee ballot. Qualifying reasons for absentee ballot includes illness, injury, or other medical reasons, immobility due to disability or advanced age, or inaccessible polling places or early voting sites. Caretakers of disabled and homebound persons are also eligible for absentee ballots if they cannot leave during voting times. Given our state's demographics, it is truly discouraging that so few people take advantage of absentee voting, but we understand the rules are complicated. To vote by absentee ballot, you must submit an application for an absentee ballot to your county clerk's office. Applications are available from the clerk, or you can download and print an application from the Secretary of State's website at govotewv.com. The application must be completed in your own handwriting. If someone assists in filling out the application, they also must complete an additional form called an Oath of Voters Assistant. When voting absentee, a copy of a valid photo ID must be sent with the absentee ballot, separately from the confidential ballot envelope. Absentee voters must also be very careful to sign and date their ballots in all the places as instructed, or the ballot could be deemed invalid or provisional. Another controversy has arisen over absentee ballots in recent years. Some politicians are objecting that states are counting absentee ballots received after Election Day. The problem with this argument is that election laws are established and elections are run by individual states, and states differ in their handling of elections and ballots. In fact, this and other myths of voter fraud in the United States have become a reliable soundbite for politicians to create doubt about elections in the minds of voters. Their philosophy is that if you repeat a lie enough times, people will begin to believe it must be true. However, there is simply no data to support these claims of widespread voter fraud. According to the Brennan Center for Law, the actual incidence of voter fraud in the United States is less than 1%. West Virginia state law says that a ballot postmarked by Election Day and received by canvass will be counted. However, a concerning development in the last week of 2025 came in the form of an announcement by the United States Postal Service. It announced they will no longer guarantee a dated postmark for mail the day it is dropped off. We at the League have concerns about this new policy, especially as we prepare for midterm elections. The League has always advised absentee voters who return their ballots by mail to allow ample time for it to get back to the clerk. Mail delays happen. We have also advised voters who mail their ballots on Election Day to specifically request a dated postmark. This means going into the post office. We have never advised voters to assume that dropping a ballot in a blue mailbox will assure a dated postmark. Now that has become even more important. The United States Postal Service has told us so. Finally, did you know that first-time voters in West Virginia have different ID requirements? These pose more barriers to high school, college, or other recently registered voters. All of these requirements are laid out in excruciating detail on the Secretary of State's website at govotewv.com. The 2026 midterm elections are upon us. If recent interim elections serve as an indicator, Americans are poised to protect our form of government and are awakened to the fact that apathy and lack of participation is detrimental to our system of governance. Make a voting plan for yourself and for those you care about who may fall into the vulnerable categories such as senior citizen, disabled, and student voters by planning ahead. Make sure your voter registration information is current by checking the Secretary of State's website. If you have moved, make sure your information is updated there. Get a form of identification that you need to vote and offer assistance to your friends, family, and students who may need your help obtaining one for themselves. Don't wait, get it now. Our vote is our voice, and we must use it now more than ever.
Thank you, Jessica. That was great. And Bob is going to give us a little bit more. This is going to reinforce some of the comments, some of the issues with getting to vote, and some of the comments of the League of Women Voters, and to give you important dates to make sure everyone is ready to vote. This presentation will actually be on our website for further reference before long.
Now let's get ready to lift your voice and vote in 2026. I want to thank Ali Robbins, the Voter Services Manager of the Monongalia County Clerk's Office, for her assistance. You must be registered to have your vote count. Tuesday, April 21st is the last day to register. You can check your registration at this link, Find My Polling Place. To register, you must provide your full legal name, date of birth, either your West Virginia DMV ID, which is your driver's license or state-issued ID, or the last 4 digits of your Social Security number if you have one, and your address. You can fill out the registration form online or download it to fill out and mail, or download a blank form and fill it out and mail. If you're mailing your form, it must be received by April 21st. Please pay close attention to that deadline. Or you can go to our county clerk's office in Monongalia County. That's at 243 High Street. And here's the link to get their information. Absentee ballots are available for various reasons. You can ask for an absentee ballot application now, but it must be received in the clerk's office by the 6th day before the election. It may be submitted to your county clerk via fax, U.S. mail, email, or in person by hand delivery. You may surrender an unopened absentee ballot at the polling place if you later decide to vote in person. However, you may not take a completed absentee ballot to a polling place to turn in there. For a list of eligibility requirements and information about absentee ballot, here's a website that you can check. It's time to vote. April 29th to May 9th will be early voting every day except Sunday. Anyone registered in the county can vote at any early voting place in the county. On May 12th, for the primary election, you must vote at your correct precinct to be sure your vote will count. At this point, we're going to choose candidates for the House of Delegates and State Senate, House of Representatives, U.S. Senate for November 3rd general election for parties that will have candidates on the ballot. Not every party will. We will elect people for nonpartisan offices like the Board of Education or judicial offices. This is the final election. There is no primary. We will also make any decisions on issues like levies or anything else that is on the ballot that's not partisan. Again, this is not a primary. Now, it's important to note which ballot you can vote in the primary, and here's the list. If your party is Republican, you may vote a Republican ballot. Democrat, Democrat. Mountain if they have candidates. Libertarian, nonpartisan. Constitution, nonpartisan. Constitution's new on the ballot this year. Or none of the above. You may vote those ballots. And remember that the Republican Party only allows registered Republicans to vote the Republican Party ballot. You must bring a form of photo ID now. This is new, that it must be a photo ID, no more utility bills. And all of the forms of ID must be valid and not expired. So first-time voters who did not do this when registering must provide additional information. And you can get this information online. Here are some of the forms of ID that are available. And remember that your regular voter registration card does not have a photo. You can go to your clerk's office and get a photo ID if needed, but those old plastic and yellow paper registration cards are not going to work. Also note that ID cards for WVU retirees and hospital retirees are not accepted, even though they have photos on them. And there are some exceptions to the ID requirement if somebody knows you, if a poll worker knows you, if you're in a state care facilities. So please make sure your ID is correct. And here's some more information for first-time voter IDs that you must show. And again, this information is on the Secretary of State's office. For everything else about elections, you can go to this page. And finally, remember that no poll worker can deny you the right to vote. If you do not have the proper ID, if there's some other question about your registration or your ballot choice or anything else, you have the right to vote a provisional ballot. And at canvassing after the election, decisions will be made about whether your vote will count, and you'll be able to track your provisional ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We're almost done. We got one more song by the Osage Choir, Lift every voice with some pictures collected on the web.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let the rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won.
There's our website. It will have information about this meeting if you like.